Hello everyone and welcome to a new YouTube video. I've got a little bit of a different video for you guys today. This month is the month of March, which happens to be Endometriosis Awareness Month, and if you don't already know, you've not seen it on my socials, then I actually have endometriosis. I was diagnosed around 9-10 months ago now, and I have been very vocal on my Instagram and my TikTok in regards to my condition, and I get messages literally on the daily of people asking me of my experiences, of like advice, different stuff in regards to my endo, and I just thought it would be a little bit easier if I sat down and explained my timeline. Obviously I know that everybody's experiences with endo is totally different. I wish that I had someone that I could have watched spoken about their experiences, because I know how isolating endo can be. So I just thought I would sit down, share my story, the good, the bad and the ugly. Not sure there's much good in there. Obviously it goes without saying, one, I am not a doctor. Please don't take anything that I'm saying as gospel. I'm just telling you my experiences. Also that my DMs are still absolutely open. I'm making this video to raise awareness and to help people that don't feel like they can DM me, but at any one point anyone can DM me. I'm gonna go through from start to finish. I actually started my period really late compared to like my peers in school. I actually started the summer I went to college, so the summer I left high school, that was when I started my period. At the time it was actually something that I was begging to come. I don't know if the word bullied is the right term, but I was called all the way through high school because the lads knew that I hadn't started my period and the girls liked to spread it. Although I don't know who's missing out, not me. But that for me was a bit of a telltale sign now looking back. So around a similar time, now I can't actually remember whether it was totally before, rushed into hospital because it was literally, I remember being lied on the living room floor, like literally crippled. The conclusion that my family sort of came to was like, oh, maybe she's got appendicitis, like maybe she needs to have appendix out. That's like where it was hurting. It was like all down like my left side. The hospital also thought it was appendicitis. I had scans and I was actually due to have an operation the day after. Went in like nighttime-ish. I was scheduled in for an operation the first thing the day after to take my appendix out. I woke up the day after, doctors came and saw me and it was gone. Like, there was no pain. It was just gone. It was so weird, the doctors couldn't explain it. One thing that they did notice in the scans was that I had cysts on my left side of my ovaries. Such a normal thing. You can get cysts, they can come, they can go, they can pop. Like, it is a very normal thing to get cysts. That's what the doctors told me anyways. It wasn't anything that we was too worried about, and that was that. I was then had a follow-up appointment. Actually told me that I had PCOS, polycystic ovaries, and that's what had caused the pain. Obviously, I was so young at the time, I was just like, okay, whatever, it is what it is. My period, and I remember being in so much pain with my periods, like so much pain, but I also feel like, you know, that's something that everybody complains about, so I never really thought anything of it. Went to the doctors like everyone does, obviously told, let's put you on some contraception like everybody does, and I don't know why, but I was very against the pill at the time. I decided to have the implant in my arm. Obviously it was what was recommended to help with the pain, so I obviously went with what the doctor said and I had the implant put in. I had the implant for 3 years, but once I got to the 3 years, COVID actually hit. So we was halfway through COVID and I actually couldn't get an appointment because they said that I'm actually offering this treatment in my area. But they did say that it does last actually 4 years, but normally they take it out after 3 years. So she was like, you'll be fine. I probably had that one in for the year, so it probably got to about 4 years. I just had that one taken out and had another one put in because everything was working for me as should be. The first implant that I had, I never had a single period. I might have had a few little bits here and there, but I didn't have like a single proper period. I was living life, I'm not gonna lie. It was soon. Still during this time, I always felt like I was one of them people that was just always ill. I would literally be ill all the time, and I don't just mean like a sniffle and a cold, which I did have quite a lot anyway. It's always ill. I can't even explain it. If you have endo, then you probably know what it is that I'm referring to, but I just felt ill all the time. There was always something that was just not right. I always felt like nauseous. I felt like sick, dizzy, like my headaches. I don't know, it just didn't feel right. It's like I could always feel something. And again, you're just probably not going to be able to understand what I'm saying if you don't have endo, but That's how I'm going to explain it. It's still happening whilst I had my implant in, but it was not anything where it was extreme to the point where it was an issue. A lot of things that I put a lot of things down to this PCOS that I had. So if I ever bloated or I ever had pain, stuff like that, I was like, oh, I've got PCOS. I remember having a full-on conversation with a client at the time, like talking about how we both had PCOS, and there was things that correlated, but there was definitely a lot of things with PCOS that I was told by people who had it where I was like, that doesn't happen to me. Like, you know, a lot of people get like hair around like the chin and stuff. There was quite a few things where I was like, you know, that doesn't happen to me, but maybe, you know, it's just symptoms that are different between people. And I never really thought much of the PCOS, to be quite honest, because it didn't affect me that much. Obviously, in hindsight, this was because I had my implant in. Round that up, whilst I had my implant, I did have symptoms of my, what I now know as my endo, but they was very much like kept at bay. Like they were a problem every now and then, but not really anything where it was like, God, I need to see a doctor. So I had my new implant put in after 4 years. I ended up having that taken out after 6 months, mainly because there was a lot going on in my life around that time anyway. I just found myself not feeling like myself anymore. Mentally, I was really, really unwell. I'd been becoming unwell for quite a while, and it was really, really, really affecting my life. I didn't really know much of who I was anymore. Sorry, this is like a little bit uncomfortable to talk about on a camera like this, but I mentally really, really wasn't well. Loss of personality was a massive one, and I just, obviously there was so much going on in my life at the time also, but I don't know what, something in me was like, maybe I need to get this out of my body. Is it something to do with this? After the 6 months of having the second one in, I then went to the doctors and had it taken out. The best thing that I ever did, in my opinion. I know some people love it and that's totally fine, but in my opinion it was the best thing that I ever did. I remember literally within like weeks of having it, maybe like a month of having it taken out, I was like a new person, and people around me noticed how much of a difference was in me. It felt like I'd like got me back. It felt like I had feelings again. I didn't feel sad all the time. Like, it was just mad. But the negatives of having it taken out was that the symptoms that I was getting before, that were now becoming extreme. And I was really, really struggling, feeling sick every day. And the only way that I can explain that is what I can imagine morning sickness being like. Obviously I can't talk for that because I've never been pregnant, but what I can imagine morning sickness being like, that's what I would feel like. But I would feel like that all day, every day, from the moment I waked up, from the minute I went to sleep. And it was disgusting. Like, it was like on the edge of being sick, but never actually being sick. Like, there'd be times where like I'd run to the toilet because I thought I'm gonna be sick, but then I'd never be sick because I'd just feel so nauseous, and my head would just feel fuzzy. I just felt sick all the time. Like, it was so weird. I can't again, can't really explain it, but it was just so weird. Didn't put these two and two together, but obviously I know it seems like this when I'm speaking now. But I actually started seeing the doctor because I was having this intense bloating, and it was so intense. I'd like some pictures over the top of here now if I can find some, but like the bloating was so intense, like I would literally look pregnant. It was really, really painful, and it was really affecting me really because I just felt disgusting. I'd go to like work in an outfit and I'd be like, oh yeah, I feel cute in this, and then I'd get to work and I'd be so bloated that I'd be like, oh God, I don't feel comfortable anymore. Went to my doctor, and I just was like, oh, I'm just getting this bloating, like maybe I'm allergic to something. And he was like, yeah, it sounds like maybe you are, let's like have a look at it. I went and had tests for Crohn's, for IBS, I had allergy tests. I had to have my blood tests done quite a few times over different sections because I had them done once and it was nothing, and then we'd done Crohn's and IBS and loads of other stuff. I don't even remember what he tested me for, but he tested me for so many different things that I had all of them. And it was like, well, what actually is it now? Maybe it's something else that we've not tested you for the allergy. So then I had another set of allergy tests, and then I think I had another set of allergy tests even after that. Again, we came to the conclusion of, we actually don't know what this is. Like, we don't know what you're allergic to. At this point, I also started to realise that this wasn't related to food, because I would eat the exact same thing, say one week, one the other week, and one day I might bloat like an hour after, and the other day nothing. So it's like, I can't be allergic to something because I'm not bloating from the same amount of foods. I even cut dairy out my diet for a little bit. I cut loads of different things out of my diet and was very careful as to what I was eating to try and figure out what it was. And then I just came to the conclusion, this is not food. It's like, I'm so confused, like this is not food. Whilst all of that was going on, my doctor was dealing with all of the symptoms that I'd told him, not with the cramping pains that I was getting. So then I reached out to a nurse and I was like, I'm getting this really bad cramping. I've been told I've got PCOS. I'd like to just check it just to make sure there's no other issue. Went for my ultrasounds with the nurse, and I went for one, And because of whereabouts it was on my cycle, she was like, you've got a cyst, so I really want to watch the cyst at another point on your cycle. So then 3 months later, this is why it ended up going on for so long. So then 3 months later, at a different point on my cycle, I then went again for another appointment, and the cyst had disappeared. And she said to me on the first one that she thinks the cysts are popping, and that's what was causing me this like insane cramping, because the cramping wasn't on my period. It wasn't when I was due on. It was just really random. I mean, at the time it was really random. I didn't know whereabouts on my cycle it was, and I never really cycle checked, because who tells you that you need to do that? The first nurse about having PCOS, and she never said anything. And then when I went for my second one, the second one was like, did you say before that you've got PCOS? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, oh, when have you been told that? So obviously I explained, and I was like, the last woman like said about it as well, like, because we were talking about it, and she didn't say like, oh, you've not got it. And anyway, this woman went, you've not got PCOS. And I was like, oh. I was like, I literally was told when I was like 14 that I had PCOS, 15, 14. And she was like, no, she was like, you've not got it. And I was like, oh. But then all of a sudden it like kind of made sense, because I never really thought much of my PCOS. So I was a bit like, it doesn't shock me to be fair, but like, how can you go so long, have doctors tell you that you've got it, and have had scans that have said you've got it, to not have it? And also I didn't really understand much about PCOS either, so I never really knew myself like, oh, have you got it, have you not? I never really thought about it, because I was just like, oh, it is what it is. And I knew it was so common as well to have PCOS that I just didn't really think much of it. Obviously, I'd been relating all of these issues that were going on to my, like the issues with like the cysts and stuff with my PCOS. Obviously, went for that appointment, she was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, because obviously there was no cysts when we went back. The woman was like, there's nothing wrong with you. Then I went back to my doctor, and I was like, right, the nurse, like, she said that there's nothing wrong, but I'm telling you that there is, like, there's something not right. Is there any way that this could be related? I just feel sick, like, I can't understand it. I just feel nauseous. I feel sick all of the time. So a lot of my symptoms, I'm probably going to miss so many out here, because there is so many different symptoms. And honestly, some months I get some and some months I get the other, so I'm even confused sometimes. But a lot of the symptoms that I get are the bloating, which obviously is an unbelievable amount of bloating, where it's rock solid, it's dead low, it's just painful, let me tell you. And then I would get nauseous, I would get really fatigued, dead easy, and I just felt ill quite a lot. Obviously my periods had come back, and my periods were really painful, to the point where the day where I would come on my period, I probably wouldn't be able to move. Like, I was in so much pain. I struggled to get out of bed some days, and there was some times, I'm so lucky that the job that I had, they were so accommodating that I was able to work from home, but there was days where I had to message and be like, I can't come in today, like, I literally can't get out of bed, like, can I work from my bed? And they'd be like, yeah, which obviously I know I am so lucky to have that. I know not everybody does. Some ones that were a little bit odd, this is why I wasn't understanding what was going on. Started to get really bad brain fog, and now looking at it, it's kind of weird now looking at it, but from the month after I had my implant taken out, this just seemed to, over the next like 9 months, this just seemed to get worse and worse. Like, the symptoms I'm explaining to you, they were there when I had my implant, but they weren't really too bad. And then I started to notice them, and then I really started to notice them, and then they were unbearable. Like, it literally just went from like, woo, like that, like it literally just depreciated so bad, so quickly. So every month was like even worse than the month before, to get like unbelievable brain fog. And I am quite like, I would say that I'm quite a switched on person. I've always been quite switched on, and the brain fog that I was getting, I couldn't explain it. Bear in mind that at this time as well, I was working a 9 till 5, and then I was also trying to do like my socials and everything, and I was pretty much doing that as if that was full time as well. So I had a really lot going on in my life. I had to remember a lot of stuff, and my job that I had also was a very intense job where I had to remember a lot of things. Like, I couldn't really mess up. There wasn't really room for making mistakes. Obviously the company was so good where, like, you know, if I ever did, but I never once wanted to make a mistake with anything that I was doing. So I'm so passionate about my work. Probably do hold myself at quite like a high standard with my job, that I was feeling like I was making mistakes quite a lot that I wouldn't normally do before. The only way that I can explain the brain fog is like, it's like something would, a thought would be, I would think a thought, and then as it's like coming to my hands to do it, it wouldn't make it to my hands and I wouldn't do it. It was so weird. Or like, I'd be in the middle of a task, and then all of a sudden I'd be like, oh, what was I doing? And I wouldn't be able to sit there and think what it was that I was doing. It was like my brain was just losing its memory, like instant memory. Or like, there was a lot of times where like I'd be driving, and then I'd totally go the wrong way. Like, I'd like carry on going straight if I needed to turn, and then I'd be like, oh God, what am I doing? Like, I wasn't meant to be going there. Or I'd come out my street and I'd turn the total wrong way as I've come out of my street, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm in the wrong place. Like, that happened to me so much, and I'd really struggle to have a conversation sometimes. Like, if I was like going through what I've just been thinking, or coming up with like creative ideas and stuff like that, like I'd be speaking and I'd just be like, what were we on about again? And I just wouldn't have a clue. That for me was really, really difficult, the brain fog, just because of how high intense my life was. The brain fog was really, 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 really difficult for me. And then another one, this one is really, really random, but every now and then I'd be sat in work at my desk and I would feel this intense sort of like loss of sugar. I'd be like, I need some sugar, like now, like I feel like I'm gonna faint. I'd like feel like I'm gonna pass out, like I would feel like dead, like lethargic. I'd just be like, I need some sugar. So I would literally walk to the shop, which was around the corner, get some fruit pastels, eat the fruit pastels, and within eating 3 of them I'd be fine again, which was really weird because I'm not diabetic. I'd been tested for being diabetic and anemic. Is that the other one that's like that? I'd been tested for all those sort of things because I'd explained this on the phone. That one was really, really weird because it would just happen every now and then and it would just be so odd. They were sort of like a lot of my symptoms that were like main symptoms that I realised at the time what I went to the doctors with. Endometriosis never once came up in a conversation, never understood really what endometriosis was. I think the only times I ever heard of endo was like this really big bad wolf that is like so scary and not that many people have it, but if you do have it, it's like the end of the world. The first thing that I thought of with endometriosis was all the, you know, the people that can't have children. So again, it was one of them things where I was like, that'll never happen to me, that's not me, sort of thing. Still at this point, still having absolutely no idea. A year after I had my implant taken out, where I've been going to the doctors and I'm like, this is getting worse, this is actually unbearable, what can I do? So then I have this friend called Molly, who I've known like for most of my life, and we don't really see them that often. Obviously, because I don't see her that often, we don't really talk about issues that we're having with going to the toilet and all of these sort of issues. We never really spoke about it. And one day I posted something on my Instagram story just about my bloating. I was sort of like laughing at myself and I was like, oh, how bad is this? And I actually think I must have been posting saying as well that I've been told I had PCOS and now I'm being told that I don't have it. She messaged me and she was like, oh my god, that bloating is exactly the same as me. And what we didn't realise is that we've both been going to the doctors and talking about it. Anyway, next time we met up with them, me and Molly was chatting and we was like, isn't this so weird? And as we started speaking, our symptoms were identical. They were literally identical. So we'd been messaging whilst each other was still going to the doctors and being like, oh, I've just been told this, like I've just been told this, like maybe you can have a look at this for you, because everything was identical. Coach doesn't mind me saying this, but Molly actually had private healthcare with her work, so she decided to go down that route. And the last thing that I heard was that she'd been told that she could probably have this operation to check what it was, but she didn't really want to have the operation. Some people don't like them, and that's obviously totally fine. My doctor, we'd come to the conclusion that we had no idea what it was. We'd literally been tested for everything, he had no idea. And it was sort of the conclusion of maybe this is just you and you I felt, he never said this, but like I felt like I was just being dramatic because there was everything that I'd been tested for. Everyone around me probably wasn't really listening to me and thinking I was being a bit dramatic. But I was like, there's something wrong with me, like this is not okay. And the doctor actually told me he gave me a number for somebody who was a private doctor who did allergy tests. He said to me like that the NHS ones are not always fully accurate, and obviously you can only test for certain amount of things through the NHS. He was like, if you go to this guy and pay to go to this guy, he can give you a full allergy test and he can full on like find what it is that you're allergic to. He was like, I've used him, like he's really, really helpful, like because he can test other things as well as allergies. Like I'd really recommend going to him. So I paid £80 I think it was for this guy to do this allergy test, and it was actually an acupuncture allergy test. So it had like this little gold thing and he put it onto like my nail bed. It would basically tell my body that something was being put into it and it would see how my body would react. Again, don't ask me the science, I don't understand. The day before I had that booked in, Molly rang me and she told me that she'd had the operation. She just said to me in a bit of a passing comment that I'm going for this operation to be tested for something, but I don't really think it's going to come up with it. And because obviously Molly had been pushed back, like pretty much everyone with endo had been pushed back and said people would say to you all the time, is it this? No. Is it this? No. Whenever you were told, is it this? You never really believed it, because it happened to us so many times. So Molly never even told me about it, because she just thought like, oh, it's not going to be anything. However, she told me that it was endometriosis and that she'd been diagnosed with it. She was like, I just would want you to like have a look at it and just see like what you think. Obviously my heart sank, because the only thing I'm thinking of, like, shit, that's actually serious. And the whole time, like, I'm thinking that this was just, I don't know, I think I'd convinced myself at this point that I was just being dramatic. That when she said that, I was like, oh, right, okay, maybe I do need to look at this. And I'd never researched it before, so I didn't really understand much of what it was. Obviously I came off the phone to Molly, obviously made sure she was okay and whatever else, and did a little bit of research on it. My appointment was booked in with this guy the day after. So I did a bit of research, and then I ended up stopping because I was like, this is too scary, like I don't want to know anymore. I thought I'll just go and see what this guy says tomorrow. Hopefully I'm just like allergic to something that's in my diet, like ice cream or something. Went for the allergy test, and really weirdly, I am not allergic or intolerant to a single thing. He tested me upon lots of different food groups, loads of different things he tested me on, but he was like, you're not allergic or intolerant to anything. But what they are able to check is something to do with bacteria. Now, I'm not 100% sure on the information that I'm going to tell you in regards to this, because I don't really remember it too much. So if I say anything wrong, please excuse me. But he tested me on some bacterias and different things like that. And although he said you're not allergic or intolerant to anything, he did say to me that my yeast was showing up extremely high, and there was a couple of other things that were flagging, but they weren't flagging as like allergic or intolerant. They were just flagging as maybe disrupting me. And these things were like onions, garlic, GSM, dairy, wheat. Like, there was so many things. There was a long list of all of these things, like sweeteners, like high sugar. Like, there was all these things that were causing me a bit of an issue. He advised that maybe I go on a diet and totally cut all of these things out, just to see how I am. Now, I did do this. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit. I did do this for about a month, and then decided that it was actually impossible for me to do because there was nothing left. The things that would be replaced, so like dairy, for example, that's like the dairy products like milk, the things that replace the milk, the other things were also on the list. So like milk, I'm pretty sure milk is like really high in sugar, and I can't have things that are high in sugar because that's triggering me as well. Everything just like contradicted each other, that it made it very impossible for me to eat anything. I'm already like a little bit fussy as it is, so it made it very difficult. Anyway, skipping back to what the guy said to me. When I went in for the appointment, I explained to him like what was going on and like why I was there and why the doctor had told me to come, blah blah blah. So then after he did the test, he said to me, he was like, have you looked at endometriosis? And obviously my heart dropped, because obviously Molly had just been diagnosed the day before, and it was already on my mind a little bit. And the fact that he then said that, I was a little bit like, shit, whoops, now I've actually got to like look at this. And he explained his reasons as to why. I'm not gonna say what they are on here because I don't want to say anything wrong, because obviously it was a long time ago, but there was a lot of things that he told me that very much made sense in regards to like the dark circles under my eyes and why different things happened, and all of a sudden it just clicked and I was a little bit like, shit, have I actually got this? So I went back to my doctor and I explained what he'd said. To be honest, I can't even remember what the response was, but I don't really think it was anything important. But because Molly had gone through private healthcare, I decided that I was going to try and do that. My work that I was working at the time had actually just started offering private healthcare, so they didn't at the start of me going through all of this, but they just started offering it. So I was like, oh well, maybe I might as well like have a call with the private healthcare to see a doctor for our private healthcare. This was I look at this and I laugh because this was the worst experience. I ended up having an appointment with him that lasted 7 minutes long, a consultation. The consultation would have costed £200 if someone was to pay for it, and it literally lasted 7 minutes. The guy did not listen to me whatsoever. You know, endometriosis doesn't really normally show up on an MRI, but we'll send you for one anyway. I was thinking, well, that's a bit of a waste of time and someone's money, a bit of a waste, because if it doesn't show up, but you know, you're saying do this, and I'd not actually had an MRI at this point, so I was like, okay, we'll do it. For the MRI, and then funnily enough, the doctor actually sent a letter to the insurance to say, unsolicited by the way, this letter was not asked for, he sent a letter to say that I'd had these symptoms since I was about 14, which obviously, because if you've got endometriosis, you've probably had these symptoms since you started your period. Well, in my case anyway. He was saying I've been going to the doctors back and forth for this issue since before the insurance started, which basically meant that the insurance wouldn't insure me anymore. It was a little bit of a spanner in the works. It then meant I couldn't go back to him, and the insurance were trying to say that they wouldn't even let me see the results of my MRI, and I was like, well, that's a bit of a waste of time because you've already done the MRI, you might as well let me see it to at least get the results. So after fighting and crying on the phone, they managed to actually let me go back to get the results. Oh yeah, this is another thing with me. My periods are super regular. 3 days long, which I know is really, really short, but they're only 3 days long. They're not heavy. I know I'm lucky in that aspect in regards to my period, because I know not everyone's like that. 3 days long, not heavy, on the day, every single month. So he said because you've got that, and also because the MRI has come back clear, he was like, you've not got endometriosis, so like I'd stop looking at this. Obviously I was so upset because I think by this point I was so convinced that I had it. I'd literally done so much research, I'd been speaking to Molly even more, and me and Molly had started speaking about symptoms that we didn't even realise were endo, like having pain when you have sex, not being able to go to the toilet when I'm on my period. Now, you don't really talk about these things with your friends, so I never really noticed that this was a thing, but when I'm on my period, I can't poo. Sorry, a little bit TMI, but I literally can't go to the toilet. I really, really struggle to wee as well, but I just thought that that was everyone. And because my period is only 3 days, I never really saw it too much of an issue, but didn't realise that that was a thing. Obviously a pain when having sex, and pins and needles, like I get a severe amount of pins and needles in my legs. Me and Molly spoke about quite a lot of them, and I was just so convinced that I had it. So I came out of this appointment, I was obviously really upset. I then spoke to Molly. I said, like, are your periods on this, like, are they regular? And she was like, yeah, my periods are regular. And also she's had an MRI and hers also came back clear, and she told that she had it. So it's like, this guy, like, he's meant to be a specialist in endometriosis. Like, how have you just told me that? Literally at this point, I was like losing the will to live because nobody was listening to me, and I knew that there was something wrong with me. I then went back to the NHS and literally begged to see a consultant. Like, I begged so hard. I went back to the guy. I kind of said to him, I think, that I'd been private, and the private had said that he thinks I've got it, but I now can't go with the private anymore. I was like, so can I just see a consultant? And I think because I'd said that, he then let me see a consultant, which obviously was good news at this point. Yeah, by this point we're nearly like 2 years after, by the way. And see the consultant, the consultant said to me, long story quite short, that she didn't think I had it, but they're going to pass me on to someone else for a second opinion. In my mind I was just thinking, well, that's a result because I'm still get to see someone. So then I went to see another person, and this was actually a surgeon. And I was passed over to this surgeon, and again she said to me, I don't think you've got it, but she actually offered me the laparoscopy. So the only way that you can get diagnosed with endometriosis is via laparoscopy in the UK anyway. There's no other way that you can say to someone that you do or don't have endometriosis. I mean, you can see it in an MRI sometimes, and you also can see it in an ultrasound, but it just depends on whereabouts in the person's body that it's sat, I think, and how prominent it is, whether you can see it or not. But it doesn't mean, but if it's not shown on them two things, it doesn't mean you've not got it. The surgeon was like, I don't think you've got it, like your symptoms don't really add up. But in my head I'm thinking, my symptoms do add up, and I know someone that's got it. So she was offering it. She was like, if you really want it though, like if you're adamant that you really, really want it, she was like, it's so invasive, blah blah blah, if you really want it, then I will offer it to you. And I was like, son, put me on the list. That was honestly an incredible day. I walked out of that so happy, and I feel like normally when people get told they're having an operation, it's not the best information. That was the best information that I could have been given, because I was so sick of going back and forth and convincing myself that I had it, and no one listening to me. That although she didn't really listen to me, I got the result that I wanted to. Actually then found out that she put me on the urgent list for the operation. I was actually really lucky in the fact that I was told that the waiting list, from being told that I was on the list for the operation, was going to be 2 years in my area, because they were so backed up from COVID still. But I actually ended up getting my operation letter through 3 months later, so it actually wasn't long at all. I remember I got the letter, I went for that meeting in around January time, and then I got the letter around March time, and I ended up having the operation. I think it was about April last year. I ended up went for the operation, yay! Went for the operation, but I was so scared running up to the operation. Not because of the operation whatsoever, not about being put under. I wasn't even told about what was going to happen in this operation, to be quite honest. I had no idea what was going to happen. Posted TikToks about it and people was like helping me. So a lot of you guys were helping me in regards to what was actually going to happen. They didn't actually tell me. But to be honest, I'm kind of glad that they didn't really tell me, because I wasn't actually worried about the operation at all. I wasn't worried about the recovery. Like, I wasn't worried about any of that. I was worried about coming up from the operation and them telling me that I didn't have it, because I just wanted some answers. Also, just in case you're not aware, there is a chance that I could have had the laparoscopy and the specific surgeon may not have found it. Because of how dismissive that surgeon had been already, I was convinced that she wasn't going to check properly. And then she was just going to close me up and be like, oh, you've not got it. But in actual fact, I could have still had it. So it just felt like this long waiting game of like still not getting answers. So I was just really nervous that I was going to be told that I didn't have it. One of the funniest things I will never forget of that day was that just before I went into the operation, the surgeon came down to see me, and she said to me, she was like, don't worry, you'll be in and out. It's probably just like a pulled muscle or something, but don't worry. I was thinking that actually doesn't help, because I'm not actually worried about this operation. I'm worried about you not doing your job properly, which is ridiculous, because obviously like they're going to do the job properly, but from the vibes that I'd got from it, it just wasn't filling me with much confidence, and that's what I was most scared of. However, I woke up from the operation. I remember shouting first, because I was like in a lot of pain, and then they must have given me something for the pain. I don't even know what room I was in at this point. I remember my eyes were closed and someone was wheeling me, and I said, did you find it? Did you find it? And she was like, yeah, we found it. And then I said, can I still have children? And she was like, we think you'll be fine. It wasn't like you didn't have loads of it. Like, oh, the relief that I felt in that moment was like, honestly, it was incredible. Like, it could make me cry, like even thinking about it, because I was just so relieved that they'd found it and I had some answers, and obviously that it wasn't bad enough that it would stop me having children. Obviously we don't know that until like I try for that. Say trigger warning for anyone with this, because I know how difficult that this is to talk about. I am just going to include some next little bits about the children's side of this, so if anyone is triggered by this, then please skip to this here. So one of the scariest things for me when I was told about endometriosis was the fact that I couldn't have children. I've always been the type of person where like my life goal is to have children and to have my own family. I literally don't care about anything as long as I have my own children, family, as long as they're all happy, obviously. And I've always dreamed about being a mum, and like I just was like, this was so heartbreaking for me, because the chance of not being able to have my own children in that way, obviously I know that there is like so many other options, but for the instant worry of that, it scared me so much. I actually remember I took a video. I couldn't stop crying. Like, I was crying on the daily, uncontrollably crying, because I was just so scared. So if there is anyone that's going through this and this is something they're worried about, I know it's really, really difficult, but like the chance, like people still have children with endometriosis. I feel like it's such a stigma where people are like, oh, endometriosis, you can't have children. Like, it's not like that. There's so many people that have had children. Like Molly May has endometriosis, and obviously she's just had Bambi. Literally so many people that still do have children. Obviously there is people where if your endo is really, really bad, then there is a chance where it can stop you, but that doesn't mean that everybody who's got endo can't have children. Please do remember that, because I wish someone had sat down and told me that at the time, because I was uncontrollably not okay. I'm gonna include a little bit of a clip if I can find it. There is a video somewhere that I was recording little updates because I had no one that I could speak to about it. Obviously I had Molly that I could speak to, but felt so alone. I mean, I know I wasn't, but I felt so alone because no one really understood it apart from Molly. So I was recording myself. I was recording myself like speaking my feelings and like doing updates and stuff, because it just felt like the only way that I could get out how I was feeling. I'm going to try and include one of the clips of when I was really upset about the children thing, only because I want people to know that like I can relate to this situation, if there is anyone that's going through it, and to know that it does get better, because I'm sat here now and I've totally accepted my endo. Trigger warning, because I feel like I remember being extremely heartbroken in this clip. Like, I need to like rant and get it out so I can stop thinking about it. But I look back at this and think I'm just being stupid.
So last week I found out that I might have endometriosis, which I don't know how I feel about it. I keep going through like these waves of like 1 minute it's fine, it is what it is, like nothing can be done, just gotta deal with it, and like buzzing because I finally know what it is. I mean, I don't even fully know yet, but like I finally somewhat know what it is. But then like I just have this massive fear of never being able to have kids. And even though like I am young and it's not something to worry about now, it's just like the what if, I guess. Always been something like I've always wanted. Like I feel like my purpose has always been like to have a family. And now I might not be able to. Well, I can still have a family, I know there's other options, but I just want to get it over with.
So that's that over and done with. I had the operation. I was also recommended in the operation to have the copper coil put in, hormonal one. The reason for this was what I was explained was a female, our hormones sort of like go like this a little bit, and then when you like might have your period or like certain things that happen, like they spike and they might go up and down like this, but on the scale like they are quite like not straight, but they are quite like this. But when you have endometriosis, that your hormones are constantly spiking and dropping, it's the spike and the drop, which is why you feel so like nauseous, and that's why like you might feel like you need sugar and stuff like that. There's lots of different reasons, but that's the face of it. And by having hormonal contraception, the hormones can actually help to flatline the symptoms a little bit. I recommend you get the hormonal IUD because it has the least amount of side effects as opposed to like the implant. The implant is actually the worst one that you can get for endometriosis, that I was told, and obviously that was what I had. Yeah, I was told that I should get that. I spoke to quite a few people. People recommended it to me on TikTok and said like, you know, it's helped them and stuff like that. I thought, well, if it helps my symptoms, now I know I've got it. And now I know that I can keep my eye on it. If it helps with my symptoms, then maybe I'll get it put in. And if I find myself declining again like I did last time, then I'll have it taken out. I've actually had that taken out now. So I did have that put in during the operation. I had it taken out about just over a month ago now because I did find myself seriously declining again. I felt like I felt like I'd lost myself so much, making me a little bit unhappy again. So I decided to have that taken out. I'm back just myself, hormonal free. Best decision that I ever made. Obviously that is just personal preference. That's just my experience with that, and that's just what I chose to do. I know that not everybody will agree with that, and that's totally fine. I don't want to push anyone in regards to that because that's so personal. In terms of my symptoms and everything else, I'm not really too sure because it has only been a month. So I need to let my body get back without the hormones, and then also to get back onto my cycle regular again, so then I can figure out what my symptoms are like. I'm hoping that they have been better since my operation, but because I had an implant the entire time since I've had the operation, I actually don't know if I am any better. So that's kind of a little bit as to where I am at right now. I was doing little updates on my TikTok, and also I do have a broadcast over on Instagram where I talk quite a lot very openly about my endo. I do put things on my story as well, but I do put a lot of things into the group chat. So if you want to join a little support group, then please join over in my broadcast. Obviously, if you want to DM me at any one time, you've got questions, you want to voice note me about it, you want someone to talk to just so you can feel like you can relate, then please do message me because my DMs are always open in regards to it, and I love seeing people's updates. Please feel free to mither me as much as possible because I do love it. It makes me feel so much better to know that I can help people in a space where I felt so alone, and I really do want to do that. I will be doing a lot in regards to endometriosis. Also, I do have some big plans in regards to it, and I really do want to make a difference in this space and be an advocate for us women with endo, because I know how hard it is, how lonely it is, and how isolating it is every single month when it comes round. And not even when it comes round, because for me it's like twice a month, but anyway. I'll get into that. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching. This is a little bit of a different video for me, but I just feel like it was something that I needed to do. I love you all lots. We absolutely have got this, and I, in this case, will always be unapologetically me in regards to this subject. Well, in regards to anything, to be quite honest. But yeah, I love you all so much.